Good afternoon. My name is Cammie Abernathy and I'm Dean of the College of Engineering. It's my great pleasure to introduce our special guest this afternoon, Anil Rajvanshi, Distinguished Alum of the College of Engineering. Welcome, Anil.
Thank you.
What are the characteristics of a great leader?
I think that a great leader is one who really has a goal and focuses on the goal relentlessly and does not think about what others think, and ultimately when he achieves that goal, that is his ultimate aim in life. Whether that goal ultimately brings in success or failure is for the future. And I have a feeling that the number of great leaders have been those who really had a goal in their mind and they relentlessly pursued it. Now, it's a human nature that when somebody follows a goal relentlessly, people start following, and that is leadership. And that is how the great leaders were. And as Mahatma Gandhi said, first they will laugh at you, then they will fight you, and then they will follow you. And that, I think, is a real leadership.
What are the greatest challenges you faced as a leader?
First of all, I'd like to tell you that I am not a leader. I am a plodder, and it's just that I had certain goals in my life and I tried to follow those goals. So the greatest challenge that I face in my life has been to continuously evaluate whether this is the right path, and if that is the right path, then to follow it, and then follow it relentlessly. So the challenges have been tremendous because people thought that I was making a fool of myself by leaving a very lucrative career here. After my Ph.D, I taught for two and a half years, and I left everything and went to rural India, and everybody thought that I was doing a harakari, but I pursued, and that you have awarded me itself is one of the things that showed me that I was on the right path.
How did your engineering education prepare you for leadership?
I think engineering was really a great education, and I may be biased, but I think that ultimately all great leaders are basically engineers. They may not have gotten the degree, but they are basically engineers, because as engineers we are taught to take apart a problem, to apply the analytical tools, and systematically slowly solve different parts and put it together to see how it comes to the reality. And all great things are work is done accordingly, and if you do this slowly you build an edifice and a leadership. And that is how I think all the if my learning of history and etc. teaches me, this is how all the great leaders did. The great discussions that Gandhi had with his other people, the great discussions that Mao had with his other people, this is all this. Everybody thought that they were not on the right path, but systematically, slowly they built up the edifice. And that, I think, is what leadership is all about.
I love that model of all leaders are engineers. What other methods of leadership development were important in your growth as a leader?
Basically, I think I learned a lot from coming here. My professor, Eric Farber, to my mind was really a leader. When nobody was talking about solar energy, he relentlessly followed it. And that is what attracted me. We were in fact one of the pioneers in solar energy at the time, when everybody thought that nothing is going to happen. And so his whole focus on doing things with your hands, trying to create solutions, no matter what people think, I think was a great learning experience, especially in University of Florida. And more than that, there were so many other things that I learned because I became very interested in all different departments. So the seminars were some of the great learning experience. And when you go and hear the seminars and the speeches from the great leaders, so we had Edward Teller, we had Nobel laureates coming in, then you learn a lot of things. And then you try to see how you fit that into your own system. And that was a great learning experience. And the same thing I followed when I went back. So that was a great experience for me.
What advice would you give to students who want to become great leaders?
First of all, dream a lot. Think about very higher things, because if your dreams are at a lower plane, then you will never be a leader. You may or may not achieve, but if you dream very high, that is the first step in being leadership. And then pursue that dream relentlessly. There will be a lot of obstacles, but try to do that. And finally, which I talk a lot in India and other parts, is to reduce your attention deficit syndrome, which I think is a very major problem with the youngsters. And that comes by focusing on a single goal relentlessly. That's the only thing I can tell young students.
What can universities do to support leadership development?
I think universities are the best place. In fact, the leaders are born. I remember in my high school, my teacher used to tell me that the future prime ministers of England were not trained anywhere. They were basically educated in Heaton and Harrow. And when you are educated in a great university, as University of Florida is, and is going to is aspiring to be one, and I think that's where the leadership starts. And I think what is needed is that the students should be challenged, because when the smart students come to a university, they need to be challenged, and the leadership starts from there. Because when you challenge a student, then he brings in reserves which he's not even aware of, and that I think is the genesis of leadership. So the university environment is the best place, and for that we need to have great teachers, because great leaders come from great teachers. And I think it has been the history of all great universities. The great professors really produce great teachers, great students who provided leadership later on in every sphere.
How has globalization impacted leadership?
I think globalization is a very good thing. The very fact that the world is flat, so what you do leadership in one area, suddenly people all over the world know about it, and talent is everywhere. And I think that's the thing that really helps, because today what somebody does in New York or in New Delhi or in Beijing is immediately known to everybody. And I think that brings in a lot of leadership qualities, because people, you never know how a leader is hidden, and suddenly a new idea can bring in a totally new thinking, and it flowers, and you have a totally new avenues for research or for development. So I personally think that the globalization is a very, very positive thing. There are a lot of people who think that we should not have globalization, we should control, including India, but I think that's a very wrong thing, because this allows a lot of people to do very interesting work. I get a lot of interns from all over the world, and to me they are the future of the world, and if we can really help them and inspire them, then who knows, if a seed is planted, it can flower one day into a great leader.
What key events or people were instrumental in putting you on the path to leadership?
I had a very insane desire when I was in IIT Kanpur to just read about the great people. So my professor was not very happy, because I started neglecting my studies, and from one end of the library to the other, where the section of biographies were kept, I read everything. So I read his biographies of Gandhi, Mao, Lenin, Ford, Edison. In fact, Edison is my hero, and they're all leaders basically, and I learned a lot from them. And you may not have the same circumstances, you may not have the same resources, but at the back of your mind, when you have read all these things, then it remains, and when the opportunity comes, you take it. And I think that has been a very great learning experience. And here naturally I learned from Farber and other people, because I used to go and talk to so many professors, and they were wonderful professors, very inspiring, and we learned. And that has been a continuous process till today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your advice and your wisdom with us today, Anil.
Thank you very much.